the fairy tale that Meghan Markle concocted for herself and Prince Harry in her own mind is really turning into one gigantic nightmare. And can we see this nightmare already beginning in their engagement interview, which happened 5 years ago today? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we are talking about the nightmare that is the lives of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. It's a nightmare of their own creation, I would say, but it started out, I think, in both of their minds as a very different fairy tale. But as always, fairy tales have very little sometimes to do with reality, and oftentimes if you think you're living in a fairy tale, reality will quickly come over and kick you in the face. And I feel like that's what Harry and Meghan are experiencing right now. Meghan Markle, I think, really believed she was going to be a Disney princess. She was going to live in palaces, she was going to wear beautiful gowns, jewelry, tiaras constantly. And then she found out pretty quickly that being a princess is kind of dull, and it had no interest for her. But she felt like because she is the ultimate star, that she could just take this superpower, take this fairy tale life, transplant it into Hollywood, and nobody would notice and nobody would care. But as it turns out, that didn't work out as well as she was thinking it was. This fairy tale that she had imagined for her life is falling apart. And I believe the fairy tale Harry attached to Meghan under her own guidance is also beginning to crumble. Because guess what, guys? Life is not like a Disney movie. The animals don't sing to you. You can't sing and have magical things happen. Reality, sometimes, yep, it stinks. Life's tough. Get a helmet. And I feel like this is what Harry and Meghan are experiencing right now. And again, we can see this right initially in their engagement interview. But if you guys haven't been here before, hello, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling royal analysis on the latest news and gossip, in addition to reviewing television shows and movies and a bit of history too. So if you guys want to subscribe, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I would love to have you back, especially if you love royals. I also have a couple left of my Recollections May Vary t-shirt. Yay, I'm wearing mine right now. I just have a couple left. I only had a small batch, but if you guys want them, feel free to head over. I will put a link in the description box down below. And also, if you love royals, I'm taking a tour with some of you guys to the UK. So I will put a link for that trip down below. It'll be next year around Memorial Day. I'm super stoked because we'll be there right after the coronation, and perhaps the Trooping of the Color maybe that next weekend. So if you want to stay potentially later, that might be a possibility. No guarantees. But that's when everybody goes out on the carriages again and goes out on the balcony. But obviously the coronation had happened a month before, so I don't know necessarily if that will happen, but it may. And I'm super stoked about that. There will also be a lot of coronation merch still available. In addition, we'll go to like the Tower of London, Buckingham Palace, Westminster Abbey, St. Paul's Cathedral, Kensington Palace, the British Museum, and then to the Cotswolds out in the country. So I will, again, put a link in the description. I'm so excited because I'm so excited for that trip. I'm really looking forward to it because it'll be just so fun to be there again right after the coronation and have some fun with you guys and talk about royals and history. Is there anything better? I really don't think so, guys. There's really nothing better than royals and history. I'm just telling you that right now. But back to this fairy tale notion. I actually was filming an entirely different video just on general reactions to the engagement interview, and then I was thinking, no way. I had this idea for a video about this fairy tale imploding on them. I realized, you know what? That is actually a better idea than what I was initially filming. So, but I feel like looking at the engagement interview, the fantasy that Harry and Meghan had concocted in their own minds, which I feel like was different in different ways, ran smack dab up with reality over these last 5 years. And I feel like things aren't going well for them. This fantasy, this notion they had that they were going to save the world and they were going to be these great movers and shakers, it hasn't happened. And I feel like it's really probably starting to freak them out some. And they are just trying to figure out what to do. And I feel like, again, the birds don't sing and talk to you. You don't have mice that are scurrying around helping you with cleaning and various things. And I feel like, well, they weren't quite at that level. I believe Meghan really thought her life would be like a Disney fairy tale as a princess. And you know what? Guess what? It ain't. You got a little bit of that on your wedding day, but then it's community centers, rainy, dreary weather, going on sometimes boring engagements, engaging in small talk with a lot of people where you probably don't really care about their sheep, but you're going to have to listen to them talk about their sheep for the, maybe 50,000th time, and you have to look interested. And that is a talent and that is an art, one that Catherine has in spades. And I feel like she shows Meghan up so much in this way. But going back to their engagement interview, and I feel like some other things I've picked up recently from what they've been saying is that Harry and Meghan, they have this vision of themselves as this gigantic, enormous, perfect, historical love story that has never been repeated, will never ever be repeated. They are Romeo and Juliet. They are West Side Story because they came from two worlds and they came together. And as a mixed race woman, no person of color has ever married into a royal family except for the, one over in Liechtenstein. And so they are changing the very fabric of the world because their relationship is so stinking cosmic. In their minds, I feel like that's what they're trying to sell the public. That's the BS they're trying to sell us. And frankly, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, Harry and Meghan. I ain't buying it. And I don't think a lot of other people are too. And this is a big problem for Harry and Meghan. And again, we see this right in the initial engagement. So when Meghan and Harry walk out, after basically the press has been called over to the Sunken Garden so they can get the picture of the happy couple, what we see initially is a couple of interesting things. Number one is Meghan's claw. The claw is already there, guys. The two-handed death grip that she has on Harry, which I feel like it's starting to manifest more and more as control rather than a gesture of love. So I feel like initially Harry wanted to do that. He was perfectly agreeable to that. But we saw in the UN that Harry let go of her hand and then she had to grab it two hands and drag it back over to her lap. That's not a healthy dynamic. I don't care. If somebody says, I don't want to touch you, your first response is not to be to touch them even more. So we just see this manifesting already very, very early as they're walking down. And Meghan also has that sachet to her steps. Guys, she's in the middle. Her fairy tale's coming through. True, she is the real Disney princess. But here's the thing too, because I feel like there was this princess mentality, the press was separated very, very clearly by a moat. There was basically a moat between the press and Prince Harry and Meghan. So they did their engagement talk barely because you couldn't hear them over the clicks of the camera, and because they were outside and they were so far away, is that there was a moat between them and the press. So there's this giant chasm basically between them, which extended and got worse and worse and worse as time went on. And so Harry and Meghan they both seem like they're distancing themselves from the press and that they're superior to it as well, because they're over here and they're smiling and they're happy and they're showing off their gorgeous looks. And Meghan's like, hi. That picture of her, and I know she was moving, but when she was like, to me, again, that screamed desperate Hollywood actress that nobody paid attention to until she managed to bag a bit of a dullard as Prince. That is what that little snapshot told me, even at the time, because I was never a fan of Meghan, that she loved every second of this. She was dying for this level of attention before. So that's just something I just thought was really interesting in that initial introduction of them as I rewatched that video, is this idea that they were a prince and princess in a tower that nobody really could touch, and that they have this magical, insane love that is guiding them. So they are very much on the high of themselves. And then they sit down for their actual engagement interviews. And there's a couple of things, again, that I feel like exemplify this fairy tale motif. So number one, Meghan claims and Harry claims that they knew nothing about each other, and that Harry was super excited to tell Meghan about himself, and he was super excited to learn about her, and that Meghan, she didn't know about the global interest in the monarchy. And I was like, when I was rewatching that, I was like, okay, I could understand that you don't know the inner workings of the monarchy, but the idea that she had no idea the global appeal is complete BS. She was, 15, 16 when Princess Diana died? She absolutely knew the power of the monarchy. She knew the attention that it would gather because she was at the age where that was super huge news. She stayed up and she watched the funeral. For me, I was about I was younger, I'm 5 or 6 years younger than her, so I was about 10. So I remember the event, but I don't remember actually watching the funeral. I don't remember anything except for the Diana Beanie Baby, that there was something about Elton John. Like, I remember bits and pieces of it, but I don't have a particular memory of like watching it and being enraptured with the whole thing. I don't remember that, but I feel like that was Meghan's experience. So this idea that she didn't know anything is complete BS. But it fits into Harry's fantasy of how they met, which is that she tripped into his life. He literally says this, that she tripped into his life. So go ahead and take a listen here.
Fell in love with Meghan so incredibly quickly was a sort of confirmation to me that everything, all the stars were aligned, everything was just perfect. It was this beautiful woman just sort of literally tripped and fell into my life. I fell into her life.
Okay, so when Harry says that, it's like, dude, do you realize that she basically social climbed her way sphere to get into your orbit? She's trying to get into any rich man's orbit that would fall for her hook, line, and sinker. And I think generally men fall for her charms better than women. Because according to Tom Bauer, Camilla saw right through her immediately. She immediately had Meghan's number, Meghan's docket. Took Charles a while. I think William was completely up on her from the jump. I imagine Catherine was too. And that was perhaps a relationship thing where Catherine's like, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. She's bad news. Although I think William is pretty intuitive, and he was like, especially because Harry, again, his other fantasy was that Meghan was just like Diana. And Prince William, who's older than Harry, and I'm sorry, he remembers his parents and their marriage and their fighting and their dynamic better than Harry does. And I feel like as well, Tom Bauer talked about how William went on this fact-finding tour to find out more about his mother, not just the fantasy and media fantasy concocted around her, the mythos of Diana. He wanted to know the true Diana, and he did find that out. And Diana was not a perfect person. I think William, probably more than just about anybody else, was extremely aware of that. And so he just looked at the whole thing and went, no, I'm sorry. And I think he was up on it from the jump, but Harry wasn't. Harry had this idea, again, that she just fell into his life, not schemed her way into his life, fell into it. And he believes as well that she knew nothing about him. So go ahead and take a listen here.
Yeah, no, it's hugely refreshing to be able to get to know someone who isn't necessarily within your circle, doesn't know much about me, I don't know much about her. So to be able to start almost afresh, right from the beginning, and getting to know each other step by step.
I'm sorry, but there's no way she didn't know anything about him. There's just no way. Absolutely no way. We have the reports that apparently she wore his mother's perfume to their first date. I completely buy that. And so she was very much grabbing him, trying to entice him and trap him in this relationship. And the only royal couple that I genuinely believe she had no idea who he was. Because let's be clear, guys, it's much more attractive for a woman to be a princess than a man to be a prince. Now, there is actually a book called The Great Cat Massacre, which I thought was really interesting because actually it was the opposite dynamic in like, I can't remember if the time period was like the 15 to 1700s or something like that. Men wanted to marry these rich women so they can inherit money and live happily and not have to worry about food. But the opposite is true now. So it's more attractive for a woman to be in a royal relationship because she gets access to jewelry, tiaras. And for men, it's harder because they have to walk behind their wives. For some men, that's more challenging. And we've seen this dynamic play out. Prince Philip did it very dedicatedly, although I think he did struggle with it at times. Prince Henrik of Denmark, he really struggled with it and got to the end where he was like, he didn't even want to be buried with his wife after he died. So there's varying levels of men who I feel like are more comfortable with it. But when it comes to women, it's almost universally like, oh my gosh, hey, let's do this. I'm like, I want to be a princess. And the only couple I believe where she truly did not know who he was when they first met is King Wilhelm Alexander and Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. I truly believe she did not know who he was. They met at I believe a party or an event of some sort. She was a banking executive. She was pretty young at the time, and she met him and he introduced himself as Alex. And she's from Argentina. So Argentina doesn't have a huge historic connection with the Netherlands. So how was she supposed to know exactly that he was the future king of the Netherlands? I truly believe she probably did not know. Now, did she find out rather quickly? Probably. But there wasn't, the internet and media, and I believe they were maybe even in the United States when they met. I can't remember exactly, but she did not know who he was. He just introduced himself as Alex. And without my extensive royal knowledge, I'm sure there's some very minor royal houses and stuff I can meet people and not know who they are. But Meghan knew exactly who Harry was when she met him. But of course, her only question was he nice? So take a listen here.
I didn't know much about him, and so the only thing that I had asked her when she said she wanted to set us up was, I had one question. I said, well, is he nice? Because if he wasn't kind, it didn't seem like it would make sense. And so
again, it's this weird fairy tale fantasy concoction. Meghan only wanted to know if he was nice. And again, that fulfills Harry's needs in this situation for this to be a fantasy. He wants that validation that this woman didn't care, that she was like Cinderella. She really didn't care that he was a prince. She just wanted to have this beautiful dance with this lovely guy and just live happily ever after. That's what I think Harry believed. Whereas Meghan knew exactly who he was and didn't care if he was nice at all, but just that he was malleable to her intentions. And when did you know what he was? Harry's imagination was that this woman just fell into his life and she was perfect. And I'm sorry, but I feel like that rarely happens where somebody's just absolutely perfect. And if there was somebody who was truly just absolutely perfect, I would personally probably question it, because I know there's no perfect people. I know there's no perfect situations. And so this idea is, I think, rather dangerous. And apparently the Queen noticed this as well, because she thought he was too in love with Meghan. Harry proposed and they went through their relationship while they were still deep, 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 especially him in the infatuation phase. And I think that's faded for him. And I think reality, again, kicks you in the teeth after a while, and you realize, oh, this person I thought, this fantasy person I created who I thought I was marrying, not only are they not that person, but that person never existed in the first place. It's not shadows of that person. That person was never there. And again, I feel like that is what Harry is discovering about Meghan over this time. And so this fantasy is crumbling. It's crumbling around them. And I feel like that's what they're struggling with right now. And Harry as well thought Meghan would fit right into the royal family. He thought she would be a team player. She would be she would be glad to open community centers and everything. But that's not what Meghan wanted. Meghan's fantasy of royalty was not this family dynamic. She didn't care about that. She didn't really care about her own family. Why does she care about the royal family? No. She wanted the gala events, the tiaras, the meeting important, influential people. She didn't care about the mundane aspects of being a royal and being a princess. And so when Harry starts talking about her being a team player, I think the body language guy has analyzed this. I believe that's who I saw, but she was like, ugh, no, that's not what I want at all. She wanted the fame. She wanted to be a star within the royal family, but that's not how it works. I've explained this in other videos, is that for all monarchies, the star of the monarchy is the crown itself. The closer you are to the crown, the greater the sun shines on you, and the greater you reflect it. So technically, Charles is now king, so he's Mercury. William has moved up to the place of Venus, and basically their wives are moons revolving around the planets themselves. Now, generally, women as royals will capture more attention because they can wear the jewelry and those flashy things, and people are more interested in their fashion. So generally, they have more attention and gravitas directed towards them. However, who's still the most popular royal? It's William. Catherine's a close second, but William is the most popular royal right now, according to YouGov poll. The reason is he's closer to the crown and he doesn't have the baggage that Charles does. And Catherine and William really have not stepped a foot wrong. And that's a huge portion of being a royal as well. Whereas Harry and Meghan, all they've done is step on landmines in various locations. But this idea that Harry had in his mind that Meghan was going to be this team player that seamlessly came in, he obviously never paid attention, because what I noticed and what really did turn me off from Meghan initially is that I knew immediately she was playing to the media. She was dropping little hits in her Instagram posts. After their relationship became public, her dog was in a Union Jack sweater. She was making coy references to herself being in London. So she was creating this, fanning the flames around their media narrative and their relationship. The problem is she's marrying the sixth in line to the throne. That's who she was dating at the time, was the fifth in line. By the time this engagement happened, he was the sixth. He was going to be the sixth. Obviously, Catherine hadn't had Louis yet, but she had two other successful pregnancies. This one would follow. And so Harry's role in the monarchy would drop further down the line. You can't be the attention-seeking person and not be the actual direct heir to the throne. That's not how it works. You will always get pushed back because you are not the direct heir. And Meghan made the mistake of thinking that she could barge her way through and be the center of the party and the center of the monarchy because in her own mind she's the best. But that's not how it works. And Meghan as well, part of her fantasy wrapped up in royalty is this idea that she could travel all over the world and do whatever she wanted. So they made reference several times to the Commonwealth in their engagement interviews. And while I think to a certain extent Harry understood their role as the president and vice president of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, that's what they would become after marriage, Meghan really just saw travel signs. She saw that, well, I could take private jets, I can go on all these parties. She had this idea of royalty that's basically one giant travel session, that she could basically do her travel influencery thing but while being a royal. And that's, again, not how it works. Travel's a royal tour is a lot of freaking hard work. I bet you right now, Catherine and William's staff are working really, really hard to make sure they have everything together for this upcoming brief couple of days in Boston. They'll only be in Boston a couple of days. I'm sure they'll have numerous outfits. There'll be a hairdresser, makeup artist, somebody to manage her wardrobe, hats if they're necessary, although we don't really do hats here in the US, although I'd love to see Catherine in a fascinator here. I feel like that would be brava. That would be wonderful. But there's so many things to think about. Boston can be cold, although the weather I saw was not going to be too bad because I am going there myself. So I'll be getting you guys some hopefully amazing, fantastic, super great coverage while I'm in Boston. I feel like Meghan, in her mind, because Harry's was part of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, thought they could do these tours all the time and that they could basically take vacations on the taxpayer's dime. Meghan Markle walking around in a beach dress with a thigh-high split up to basically her, basically almost her butt, and walking around as if they were on holiday as a royal on tour, meeting the public was utterly, it was a spaghetti strap. I mean, it was a complete and utter beach dress, was breathtakingly inappropriate. So inappropriate, especially considering the massive slit in that dress that went up so unbelievably high, and she's kneeling down. You can see her entire thigh basically. You could just tell she wanted to go on vacations on the UK taxpayer dime or whatever country was hosting her. So she would do a couple of things where she would get some attention, and then she could go and take a break on the beach, because on that Australia tour, what did she do? She took a day or two break while they were on it. And then you also have, I mean, she was obviously pregnant, so I kind of get it. But then they were on the South Africa tour, and Meghan took time off there too. Because again, she wanted to do the fun parts of the tour and then just take a vacation. Because the real focus was the vacation and the accolades from the public. That's what she really wanted. And what struck me initially too about watching this engagement interview again is this notion that there was very much, I guess, a lot of secrecy, even between Harry and his family regarding his relationship with Meghan. So he talked about how he would try to be very cautious about who he told that Meghan was coming into town, trying to basically, and it sounds like they managed to keep their relationship pretty much secret from the vast majority of people for 6 months. And here's the thing, what that does is that creates a bubble. And in Harry and Meghan's case, a fantasy fairy tale bubble that they are in, where they're giving each other affirmations and they're growing in their relationship, but I don't think in a healthy way, because they have no reality to face. They're basically always cocooned in the bubble of their own home. They're not interacting with other people that much. They even admitted it much. They maybe asked some friends over from time to time, but it sounds like Harry and Meghan spent just a lot of time together alone, not with family and not really with friends. And again, that's another sign, I feel like, of a very, very unhealthy dynamic. And it shows me that Harry and Meghan really, at the end of the day, this secrecy notion that they had, I feel like became their Achilles heel, and it became something that was incredibly damaging to them as a couple, basically, because they were allowed to not have reality basically kick them in the teeth. They weren't tested. They weren't tried. They didn't go through trials of fire. Now, in their mind, they did, because, oh no, the press was mean to me. But it really wasn't that bad compared to what Catherine had to deal with. Catherine really had to walk through fire to get to where she was. She was constantly harassed by paparazzi, by the media, called Waity Katie constantly. There was even a billboard on a bus that she sometimes rode that said Waity Katie on it. I'm sure she found it difficult to get a job. She wanted to keep aspects of her relationship private, but her and William's relationship bloomed within the confines of their families, especially Catherine's family. William, I think, very much gravitated not only to Catherine, but to her stable family. And that dynamic was completely lost to Harry and Meghan. I don't think, and especially because I think the other aspect of why Meghan and Harry spent a lot of time cocooned together is that Harry was being told by other family members, friends, that we don't like her. There's something not working there. There's something, they were trying to warn him off Meghan Markle, and Harry misinterpreted this as something negative rather than all of them just trying to be helpful, going, dude, you're not seeing the whole picture here. Like the Queen said, he was so in love and infatuated. He was so in the midst of this fairy tale he was creating. He didn't see the truths as what was really going on behind the scenes. And again, what I found was really interesting is that Harry talked about how Meghan and Diana would be thick as thieves. So go ahead and take a listen here.
Oh, they'd be thick as thieves. Without question. I think she would be over the moon, jumping up and down, you know, so excited for me.
I think Diana and Meghan would get along like water and vinegar. They would not mix. I think they would fight like cats and dogs. And I think William knew that. William knew Meghan was not the ultimate version of Harry's mother. She was not Diana incarnate. In fact, she exhibited the worst traits of Diana rather than her best. And I feel like William absolutely knew that and saw through her 100% and tried to warn Harry the best he could. But it didn't really go anywhere, unfortunately. And what we have here is so at the end of the day, the fairy tale Harry and Meghan had concocted for themselves, that they were these super uber couple that were groundbreaking in every aspect of the word. And this culminated, so throughout the engagement, we saw these elements of this myth that they had created themselves. We see the ultimate fruition in many ways in their engagement photo shoot, with Meghan wearing a $75,000 dress, because what Meghan thought is that she could wear any couture designer she wanted to. She could wear dresses worth tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars constantly, because she thought in her mind that, hey, I can wear a dress like this all the time. And what happened? Immediately people called out, wait, is that dress see-through? And then it costs $75,000? Are you out of your mind? And the palace had to come out and say who bought the dress, or explain that it was purchased privately, because it caused such a controversy because that dress was so pricey and so over the top and ridiculous. And Meghan didn't understand that because she had this fairy tale notion. You see this even in the photo shoot, how they have this one picture where they look like they're on it's an ad for a perfume, and then they're walking through the gardens of Frogmore House in her couture designer dress costing $75,000, hanging on her future husband. It was so over the top, and I feel like fantasy-esque. And as their wedding approached, I feel like probably they reached the pinnacle in their minds, or at least Meghan's minds, of this is her Disney princess moment. She got this gown, this tiara, the jewelry, the gorgeous wedding, everything she wanted. But what happened afterwards? Reality. And reality is, well, royal life can be boring. There are rules you have to follow. You're not the star. Whoopsie. Catherine, Camilla, the Queen, Charles, William, they're all the stars ahead of you. Prince Philip was still alive at that point as well. So she very much, I think, found out very quickly that this real life that she envisioned based on the Disney princess mentality didn't exist. And so she concocted another fantasy for her and Harry, where they could go to California. They could live the life they always wanted to live. Harry doesn't have to worry about the paparazzi, because paparazzi don't exist in California. They'll leave him alone. They can live a private life. They can have this magnificent production company. They can be creative. They can move and shake. And I feel like this Hollywood fantasy has quickly turned into a nightmare, because I don't think Harry believed in the delusion that Meghan was a successful, competent creative when she's not, I don't think. I think she really struggles with it. Her podcast hasn't, I don't think, performed super well for Spotify. It's dull, it's boring. She's a terrible interviewer. And basically she just wants an echo chamber so she can gripe about the names she feels like the media called her. So I don't feel like her podcast is doing particularly well. They already don't like the reality TV show. They've told us that. And so everything around them, I feel like, is starting to crumble. And so this epic fantasy fairy tale they built up in their minds around their engagement, 5 years later today, it's turned into a nightmare. And who can they blame for that? Well, Harry and Meghan, you can blame yourselves, because you guys are the reason why your perhaps fantasy fairy tale life, which I think you could have had, has turned into a nightmare. Because the fantasy and fairy tale is not that your lives are perfect, not that about jewelry and gowns and those sorts of things. It's about two people who are just in love trying to get by, and that there is a friendship underpinning your relationship. But we've never seen that level of maturity from Harry and Meghan, because it's all about this grand love story rather than the day in, day out modernity of life. Because if two people can fall in love with just the average everyday things that happen in life, I feel like those people are going to go the distance. Harry and Meghan are so fueled by their narcissism and this grand illusion that they've created about themselves, that it was always destined to crumble. And the question is, how long will it last? How long can they stand to be together before one of them files for divorce? Because unfortunately, they're hitting up on reality, and their fairy tale is now a nightmare. Guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your initial thoughts were when Harry and Meghan's engagement was officially announced, and do you think they'll make it to their 5th anniversary? I only ever gave them 5 years. I think they may go beyond that, but that's because at this point, Harry would have to admit, if he divorced Meghan, that basically all his friends and family were right and he was really, really wrong. So guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again really, really soon. Bye.